Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Remember back at the beginning of the year when I talked about adding a way off the eastern side of the layout? Well, today we set that up. What I used for this task was some pink foam offcuts, a brick mold, plaster of Paris, some drywall filler, unsanded tile grout, texture paste, white glue, 3D resin printed bridge parts, and of course, static grass. My initial mock-up was right after shooting that January video. It was just a wedge of foam and a piece of balsa wood to get an idea of how it might look and how high I wanted the bridge to be. In the intervening months, I decided to start the bridge much closer to the tracks and found a free bridge deck, railing, and pier set on Colts 3D. I'll link that in the description below. I printed more than I needed because the set had two different widths and was designed to be printed with a filament printer. I wanted a better finish, so I used my resin printer, and large flat parts that are resin printed can have warping issues. But those extra parts did allow me to play around with how I wanted to set the scene. Previously, I had printed some N-scale guardrails. They are not time frame prototypical, but they will work. Finally, I decided I wanted the ramp to the bridge to kind of curve upwards. This was due in part to save space on the layout because I hadn't designed this in from the beginning. I just used my hot wire foam cutter to split the curved section into a wedge shape. So after fiddling around with the placement of the ramp and how I wanted the bridge parts to fit with the ramp, I set about gluing up 3 deck parts. CA glue, accelerant, and some sandpaper got the decking and the railings ready for primer. I decided to use a gray-blue Russian World War II blue over a black primer. It kind of looks like the same color that most of the bridges are painted in my hometown of Philadelphia. Maybe it's not period correct or prototypical for the time frame, 1950s Pennsylvania, but when I see this color on bridges, it just warms my heart. It makes me think of going home. Once that was dry, I taped off the lower parts of the decking and got the top side all painted in a concrete color. Then I came back with some thinly sliced Tamiya tape and painted the white divider line, and I kind of stippled that on the top deck so that it wasn't crisp and clean. While the paint was curing, I came back and added some foam rectangles to the sides of that ramp. That way I could create some flat spots for the stonework. Call me crazy, my wife often does, but I like to hand lay little tiny plaster bricks. It's just molded plaster bricks put onto the side of the foam with some white glue, and you just kind of let it sit and dry. I did use the bigger blocks in the set, but it still took a couple of evenings to get it all done. For this project, I mixed a 50-50 blend of unsanded tile grout and plaster. The grout is super fine, but I felt the structure needed a little more stiffness, so the plaster would provide that. I just poured it on and used a stiff flat brush to push the mixture into all the gaps, and then came back with a large flat brush to remove the extra from the surface of the plaster stones. Scenic cement, which is just a 50-50 blend of PVA and water, was pipetted over the surface. The water would activate the grout and the plaster mixture, and the glue helped lock everything in place so it wouldn't move and added some more stability to the bricks. Here you can see the effect after an overnight cure. Painting started with the overall base coat of buff. Again, back home, the stonework on most railroad abutments are a blue-black quarry stone with an off-white chinking, and that was what I was trying to replicate. So the next step was to overbrush the stone color, a combination of grays, dark grays, and light blues. And overbrushing is basically just a really heavy-handed dry brush. And I tried not to push the paint down into the crevices, but leave it on the surface so you could see that bluey black stone and the chinking will still shine through. Vallejo dirt texture paste was used to add some dirt above the stonework onto the ramp. The last little bit to do was to cut some heavy card to build up the cement berm for where the ramp meets the railroad. And once that shape was set, I used pins and tacky glue to set it in place and let it dry overnight. The next day, Bits of paper and Sculptamold were used to fill the gaps and build up some groundwork, like the cement retaining berm was set into the ground, not laying on top of it. While I had the Sculptamold out, I connected the other side of the ramp to the mountain range already in place. Some joint compound was used to make the paper look more like cement berm and to lay a base for the road on the ramp. The last bit of construction was to locate the piers. I used one of the extra piers I had printed and some acrylic paint to locate where to drill the holes. Just put the paint on the bottoms, dab it down in place, and you've got your drill marks located. Next up is the time to paint that cement berm I built, the ground and the road surface. The road striping was once again using the thin cuts of Tamiya tape and masking and then stippling with white. Again, remembering in 1950, most places used white for their center lines and did not have fog lines. I added some basic dirt and static grass, and I added that in places where I wouldn't be able to get to once the bridge was set in place. The pier was set in place with latex caulking. The caulking can says that you can paint it in about 2 hours, but I like to give it a full overnight to cure. It was shaped with a wet brush, a big advantage using latex. I used tacky glue to set the bridge on top of the piers so that I could get the placement right without getting locked in place. And it looks like I needed a small plastic spacer to close the gap between where the road surface and the bridge met. And I just made this into an expansion joint. Once the second pier was set on the other side of the current layout, with a space left for the 3/8 inch plywood so that I can eventually expand that side, I then came back once that was set and tacked the resin bridge to the resin pier using quick setting CA glue. There's more minor work to do around the ramp, like reestablishing the original road and the grade crossings, putting up road closed barriers, and there will be more trees and some hills to add, like I said on the other side. But for now, I'm calling this project completed. Let's run a train and see how it looks. The Lehigh Valley boxcar is actually the highest rolling stock I have, so the clearance is good, unless I throw something big on a flat car. Anyway, I really like the look of the highway overpass. I think it adds a little character to the layout, and it'll give me some filming opportunities to pass under something with the train instead of the train going over everything. Anyhow, until next time, happy model railroading.